This week on The Wheelhouse. AI in schools. Lawmakers are focusing on the use of AI in classrooms. What does that mean for students? For Connecticut Public, I'm Frankie Graziano. This is The Wheelhouse. It's a show that connects politics to the people. We got your weekly dose of politics in Connecticut and beyond right here. A law recently passed in Connecticut to address some of the questions raised by the emergence of artificial intelligence. Senate Bill 5 was signed into law on June 2nd by Governor Ned Lamont. The bill specifically targets youth social media addictions, increases AI literacy, and promotes economic development. But it also lays out restrictions regarding the use of artificial intelligence in public schools and in higher education. This hour, the regulation of artificial intelligence and what it means for local students. Irene Parisi works for a state agency that would oversee that implementation. She's the Chief Academic Officer for the Connecticut State Department of Education. Irene, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for inviting us.
So great to talk to you about again. We've talked here in recent years about how the department, how everybody's coping with COVID-19, everything like that, mental health supports. And it's good to talk to you here about artificial intelligence, obviously. 888-720-9677 is the number to call if you'd like to reach out to us this morning. If you have any questions about artificial intelligence, maybe you just want to spend your Wednesday morning talking to somebody about how you use ChatGPT or something like that, give us a call, 888-720-9677. Can you talk a little bit about how artificial intelligence impacts the work that you do in the Connecticut State Department of Education? I guess, how often does AI come up in the classroom or even in high-level meetings that you have?
Sure. In working with school districts, certainly there's a lot of conversations. I think there were more conversations back when Public Act 24-151 was passed. So in session 24, and that's when we had to start an artificial intelligence pilot. So I think that really elevated it, along with our State Board of Education 5-year plan, which also elevated curriculum. And in the age of AI, what does that look like? So a lot of conversations there. So I think we've learned a lot since the implementation of that statewide pilot. We're always trying to come back to where the Commission of Educational Technology had said, let's think about effective and intentional integration of technology. This is just another wave that we're experiencing in our schools. So some of the same rules apply. Some of the same conversations need to be had. But I can certainly share more about the pilot and what we've learned and the conversations we had there.
Yeah, and it's intriguing that you brought up the AI regulation in 2024 because we're still on that new frontier of regulating AI as we're talking about even with this bill. So, sure. Yes, feel free to talk to us more about the pilot if you can.
Sure. So we were very intentional and measured with that pilot, and that legislation required that we work with 6 different school districts across the state so that we had a good representation of big towns, cities, urban, rural organizations. And we also had to identify tools, which was an interesting experience because we did submit and share a request for information. Like, what are the tools out there? So you mentioned ChatGPT and Gemini, but there's so many more. So we wanted to make sure that we reviewed those tools and chose tools that were safe and FERPA compliant and met the student data privacy requirements for school districts to actually use in their classrooms. So after that, we only found 5 at the time that really rose to the top and met 7 criteria under review. And so then the school districts that were part of the pilot, we had East Hartford, Lebanon, Odyssey School in the Community, Rocky Hill, Seymour, and Westport. They got to choose which tool they wanted to use, and they can use that tool with confidence as we then started to implement it in the classroom.
I want to talk more about that because I want to talk about a little bit later as we close up how you all integrate and interface, I guess, with local school districts on this. But this past year, you attended the Connecticut Education Network's annual conference that focused on the integration of AI technology into K-12 classrooms. What were your key takeaways that you had at the conference?
That there's more to come, right? There's so many more waves of technology that we're going to experience. Myself, having been an educator since 1998 in Connecticut, I've experienced multiple waves of technology integration. So I think of it as like chalkboards to chatbots. So everything that I've experienced. So that was a key takeaway, even from the keynote speaker, that it doesn't end here. There's going to be another wave of technology that we have to pay attention to. But in the moment now, if we develop our learners with those knowledge and skills and dispositions around digital literacy, media literacy, AI literacy, tech literacy, information literacy, then regardless of whatever technology they come in contact with, they will be able to discern whether or not it's appropriate for use. They can critically think about it and make the most appropriate decisions on how to use it.
I'm glad you brought that up because it is a fascinating dichotomy when you think about the 90s. It's the first time that many school districts would have gotten computers even in a classroom. Or as I remember it back in the day when I was in elementary school, you would have went to the laboratory classroom.
Right.
One classroom that had the computers in it. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think prior to the pandemic, a lot of schools were already thinking about personalizing learning and using technology, digital tools and devices to personalize learning and create flexible learning experiences. And so a lot of districts were ready once the pandemic happened and we had to then be remote and learn. And a lot of districts had a lot of digital tools in place too. So that kind of one-to-one environment was ready. And then we built that up even more, right, across the entire state and certainly across the nation. So I think the tempo accelerated, right? And now we're getting back to now how do we intentionally and think about that integration.
Later on the show, we're going to talk about the legislation that passed. We're going to have a state senator in here to talk about it. I'm wondering if you going to the conference in any way would have been a precursor to how you either have reacted to discussions at the state capitol this year or, sort of how you wanted to interact with the proposal. Did anything go into any recommendations that you might have made, sort of what you've been learning?
So whenever there are legislative bills proposed, the Commissioner of Education, Charlene Russell Tucker, has an opportunity to provide testimony. And certainly we have an opportunity to share our perspective and certainly what the impact might be on school districts. A piece that I'm focused on in the latest bill, which really comes back to 10-16B, which is about the program of instruction in schools. So now what has been added is the artificial intelligence and emerging technologies. So how do we respond to that is that we have an obligation to provide those resources, if it's an alignment to our model curriculum or helping to curate some of those resources, or just even the guidance, which is what we're working on, guidance on how to effectively integrate artificial intelligence and any emerging technology into the classroom.
What concerns are you hearing about with the children? We're talking about sort of, implementation and trying to make sure that we're following sort of what we're doing to be compliant with the state. But what about the children specifically do you think about when you think about trying to implement AI in the classroom?
So what we've talked with teachers about is begin with your curriculum first. Begin with the standards that have been approved by the State Board of Education and that you are actually implementing in your district. Because within those standards, there are AI-related standards. So think of it as media literacy. We've already been teaching that with students and growing that to determine credibility and bias and relevance and so on. Those skills still apply. And now layering in the AI literacy. So now you got prompt engineering. So what does that look like? Asking critical questions. So instead of doing a Google search or a web search, now you're doing it differently within the AI tool that's been approved by your district for use. So it's helping to develop those prompt engineering skills. And that's what we learned from the pilot too. The students had to grow in that ability of asking a very focused type of prompt to get the appropriate output, right? It's only as good as what you put in to get that output, right?
Well, you are doing the Lord's work in that regard, trying to make sure that media literacy happens for the next generation. So I appreciate that very much. The creation of the computer science account to support related programming in schools has officially gone into effect, as I understand it. Where's the funding from this account coming from, and who's going to manage it?
I think we still have to unpack that because I'm not sure if there were available appropriations for that. So, and I think that's within the bill. So I think we have to look at that a little further. But that account and that proposal has been in the legislation for some time.
We will be watching that to make sure that we understand where the money will actually come in, as that happens a lot of times in Connecticut, where we talk about passing something and it doesn't necessarily have money attached to it in that regard. But there's the new regs, and then prior to the close of the school year and the passage of the legislation, weren't kids sort of, I think you've alluded to this so far, haven't they already sort of been interacting with AI?
Absolutely. Districts have the authority to procure any digital tools that they choose to use in district. And so many were partnering with the RESC, their local RESC, and determining and some of the names are like Magic School or School AI, which actually came to the top of our list when we reviewed them, that we said that Magic School and School AI met our 7 criteria. So it kind of gave confidence in utilizing those tools. If a district was already like a Google Suite educator district, then they've expanded with the use of Gemini. So again, superintendents as the district lead can certainly procure and implement how they want to, and using their team to develop policies and practices for the effective use, because there's a lot to consider, right? You have to inform your community, your family. You need roles and responsibilities for the student, the role of the teacher, and the role of the district leader, of course. So I would expect that they've done all of that work and published those policies, just like the schools in our pilot did, and are good models. I think they were sharing with each other, but absolutely it was already happening.
Is there a way you can condense sort of what the effective use of AI is going to be, or excuse me, the what's the word I want to look for? The approved use of artificial intelligence will be? Is it going to be the prompt engineering? What exactly will we be seeing this fall?
So again, those skills to develop those schools, that's just another supplemental tool to use. I think it's important that districts, they're concerned about cheating, right, and academic integrity, then define it. Define what cheating is for your district, and also share what are the allowable uses. Do you change the way you now assess learners? So maybe it's not on a Google document or a Google form. Perhaps you use paper and pencil, and then they provide for an AI disclosure statement, or they provide their transcript that they used from the AI tool that has been approved by the district. So I think we have to rethink the pedagogy that's going into the planning for use of these tools, and that's okay. We've done that before, like I said, from chalkboards to chatbots. We can make it work, but I think upholding what's the digital literacy, how do you build a digital citizen using these particular tools, as well as layering in that use. It does not have to be used every single day. And I think that's what we learned from our teachers in the pilot, that it's not for everyday use. You have to discern which project or which task is it most appropriate. And the students shared that as well, that I don't need it every day. I want to rest on my own confidence that I have the skills and ability to make a decision about my project.
So now we're digging further into the nuance, especially when we talk about the pilot. But we're talking about school districts and their ability to implement AI policy. We know that I think it was Torrington, Westport, New Haven, maybe even Rocky Hill, or excuse me, Meriden is one town I was thinking about, that were implementing some of these early policies. Sort of how far can school districts go, I guess? Will they have power to implement their own policies? How will you all sort of be monitoring this, I guess?
So they work with their local board of education, right, to develop policy, and it would have to be approved by the local board. There's certainly laws and guidance that they must comply with, and certainly data privacy is one of them that's been longstanding in Connecticut. Monitoring, again, we would expect the superintendent is monitoring the implementation of these tools along with their teachers and other district staff. But we do meet with districts to see how are things going. We want to learn, too. So we develop focus groups. We bring them in to see how is it going. And I think with the release of our guidance and any updated guidance, that's going to give us an opportunity to kind of have different think tanks with different districts to learn more. But again, I'm going back to the pilot. I know a lot, but we did evaluate that pilot with the CCERC, which is our research collaborative of universities, and UConn was the lead. And so from that, I think that's over 1,500 students that participated in it. It's a strong data set to show us that, yes, those policies have to be thoughtfully created with your local board, with your families and caregivers and your whole community at large, and communication is key. And professional learning was at the top of the list for that. We need to have more professional learning for the educators that are implementing this in the classroom.
And I think in the pilot program, there was $100,000 or something like that was given to some of these school districts to participate. So just finishing up here and finishing up this whole thing and learning from the pilot, will it be resources? Will it be financial? Will you need money to continue to do this? What's it look like in the next 5 to 10 years here?
Sure. So the future looks bright. How about that? Yeah. So we're going to release a framework and guidance on the integration, having learned from the pilot, and also our partnership with the Commission for Educational Technology. We want it to be a durable framework so that it has longevity, meaning that it's not just about AI and ends with AI. It is about this most recent bill, about any emerging technology that's coming forward. As far as funding, I can't speak to that, but we have enough information and resources that we can share at no cost to districts, including our model curriculum, which will now include and integrate AI, which will help them meet the requirement in the new legislation. And we want to ensure that we have open conversations so that we're not leaning so far to governance, that we're balancing, we're finding equilibrium with this, because students are going to access it at home. So how do you build the bridge to home and have that open conversation with your students and your families, and certainly the State Department of Ed?
Hard to ask Irene Parisi to look too far into the future, because we're talking about chalkboards, we're talking about chatbots. I don't even have any kind of inkling to understand what might be next. But nonetheless, it was great to have you on, Irene.
Thank you so much.
Chief Academic Officer for the State Department of Education.
Thank you so much.
Coming up next on the Wheelhouse, we are going to talk to a lawmaker. This was Irene Parisi. Hit us up, comment on our YouTube live stream, or give us a call, 888-720-9677, 888-720-9677. More on artificial intelligence and education next on the Wheelhouse. This is the Wheelhouse from Connecticut Public Radio. I'm Frankie Graziano. Senate Bill 5 was signed into law earlier this summer. The legislation regulates artificial intelligence and lays out plans for how the technology can be used in K-12 and higher education classrooms. And joining me now, somebody who's been a part of this since the beginning of lawmakers talking about artificial intelligence, at least at the state level. State Senator out of Milford, James Moroney. James, good morning.
Thanks for having me here.
Thank you for coming on, State Senator Moroney. Monitoring the growth of AI as part of the General Law Committee, I appreciate you coming on. We do want to invite folks to give us a call. What kind of work do you want State Senator Moroney to do on artificial intelligence? Maybe you want him to do something else, but let's talk about AI, and let's talk about some of the ways that people use AI. Folks, again, hit us up, comment on our YouTube live stream, or give us a call, 888-720-9677. Basically, the best way that you could describe it, why do lawmakers need to concern themselves with AI?
Yeah, I think it's a foundational technology. It's integral right now to everything that we're doing. And we're seeing that we need to get the workforce ready. As far as education, just looking at it, it's the majority of jobs now require generative AI skills. We know that if we want to graduate people into the world, they have to have certain skills. Business Higher Ed Forum has identified 7 essential skills for the AI economy. So we want to make sure that we're preparing our students. And our goal really is to have Connecticut be the most AI literate workforce in the country.
Where's that pull coming from in terms of wanting to regulate AI? Is it about trying to make sure that there's youth and sort of the media literacy, there's ethics, or is it more about that sort of workforce development and maybe more community economic development as well here in Connecticut?
Yeah, I mean, we approached it in a balanced way, but I think most of the polls you see when you talk to people, they want AI to be regulated. And it's 80%. And almost every poll, it's over 80% of the people who want some form of regulation on AI. And it's almost 2/3 of the people who don't think the government is going to go far enough in regulating AI. And so in some ways I see the technology, I think of it like elevators. Yeah. The elevator was invented, but it was only used for lifting I think furniture in a furniture store or lifting things up.
Like freight, yeah.
Yeah. And then at the World's Fair in the 1850s, Elijah Otis invented the elevator brake, and he demonstrated that he cut the rope and the elevator stopped. And then we saw it was safe to lift people. Right. And so once the elevator became safe, it changed the way we built our cities. Cities built up. We had a radical transformation of our urban areas. I think the lesson from that is we don't fully adopt or embrace technologies until people feel safe. So we needed to start with some form of baseline regulations and making sure that we are assessing these things to see they're fair and accurate. AI is making decisions in so many different ways. 98% of Fortune 500 companies are using AI to make employment decisions. And that's why, a lot of our focus was on AI and employment in the regulations to make sure that people have the right to know and that they're hopefully, that companies are testing these things to make sure they're fair and accurate for the decisions. We're also seeing it be used in housing. Right, another thing that's very important, 50 to 75% of landlords are using AI to screen tenants. And we want to make sure they're making fair and accurate decisions. If it's based on the wrong data, we gave residents the ability to see the data it was based on, and this was in last year's bill, and to correct that data if it's wrong, because people have been denied for wrong data, for things that they didn't even do.
It's a fascinating conversation because we did have this conversation, you and I, in the past, where some housing discrimination and AI housing discrimination and folks not realizing that the artificial intelligence was being discriminatory. I think this was a study that you had brought up in the past that had happened out of the Midwest or something like that. But I know that that's something you're paying attention to try to make sure that people can get housing, but they're also not subject to some of that traditional discriminatory practice that might happen.
Correct. Yeah, and there were several instances of that. But also, so we want to see that people feel safe. We've seen, unfortunately, I think it's 75% of teenagers access chatbots regularly. And we've seen instances. There was a report in Connecticut. Actually, I had an intern. She wasn't my intern. She was interning with another agency. We were in a meeting, and we were talking about AI. And she said, well, what are you talking about? I want to tell you what happened to me. I also volunteer in a middle school. And during the school day, several kids were led into sexually inappropriate conversations on chatbots. And so, as part of Senate Bill 5, we put in regulations to hopefully prevent these chatbots from leading children into sexually inappropriate conversations. But we also put in protections for suicidal ideations. In Connecticut, unfortunately, we had one of the only murder-suicides attributable to ChatGPT in Greenwich. But there have been young boys across the country who have taken their life after having been encouraged or in some cases coached by a chatbot. So we did put in protections to prevent, if a user expresses suicidal ideations, to shut down the conversation, point them to resources. So again, addressing some of the harms that we've seen, making sure people feel safe, but also making sure we're prepared, right? And creating the Connecticut AI Academy, free courses for all of our residents, training, within the AI Academy. And David Ferreira at Charter Oak is creating that. He's doing a phenomenal job creating courses for teachers on how to integrate it, for superintendents and administrators on how to understand what's happening and to help integrate that into the classroom. And then looking at, as you mentioned, at the K-12.
And that's 3 points of growth, I think, that you specifically are looking at. If you could just quickly sum that up for us, or a few points of growth that you have with few points of concern that you have with the growth of AI.
Yeah, well, I just want to make sure that everyone has access to training, right? Sure. And we've seen that, there's this saying that it's not AI that's going to take your job, it's someone who knows AI that's going to take your job. But that ignores the critical reality that there are jobs that are going to be lost. And when we look at studies, Indeed released a study of the percentage of skills of their top job listings that could be replaced by generative AI. Among the top of them, administrative assistant, customer service representative. These are jobs that are often done by women, right? And the studies show 1 in 3 women are in jobs that are at risk of being automated by AI versus less than 1 in 4 men. They're also gateway jobs. They're jobs that talented people get in, they do a good job, and they work their way up. So what happens if we're removing that bottom rung for the ladder? So we're trying to make sure we're creating training opportunities for people to reskill and upskill themselves. Another study shows 60% of the workforce is going to need to reskill themselves in the next 5 years to get ready for the coming changes. So we're creating those free opportunities, but we're also looking long-term at students to make sure that they have those abilities. So we modified, again, too many times you create new demands on the teachers, and they're already so busy in the classroom. So we did 2 things within this bill. One, In 2019, I worked on a bill where we required every school in the state to teach computer coding or computer science. And so we just modified that requirement to make sure that it was explicit that it included AI within that. But the other is making sure that teachers are ready. And so we were the first state in the country to require that all of our teachers and teacher training programs have exposure to teaching computer coding. So we just modified that to also include AI and emerging technologies to keep it flexible so we don't have to come back and change it. We don't know what's coming next.
You brought up the ladder, so I want to think about it this way. It's not the first piece of AI legislation in Connecticut, right? We've had other iterations, right? I think in 2024, we were talking about an AI pilot program in schools, right? So
as part of Senate Bill 5, we worked on getting the pilot program in there, yes. And then we also did make it illegal for the non-consensual intimate images, deep fakes last year in 2025.
So where are we on the ladder now in terms, I would imagine we're towards the bottom, but like help me understand this, because I'm imagining that you have the big picture on this. Where are we in terms of regulating the growth of AI and I guess making a safe way forward for Connecticut residents?
Yeah, I'd say we're still in the early innings, right? So in 2023, we actually created an AI task force before ChatGPT was launched in Connecticut. 2022, when we passed our data privacy bill, we created an AI task force. And so in the December, I think it was, of 2022, in a symposium we held, Arvind Krishna, the IBM CEO, spoke to us and said we were in the early innings of this game. And I think we still are. And we're not in the... we're still probably before the fourth inning. We're probably still in the first three innings of this game. As far as looking at the future of AI regulation, unfortunately, we're going to see harms that will come up that will need to be addressed. But I think a lot of this is going to be industry specific as we go forward. We're going to see different, whether it's banking, putting in specific regulations for lending and other issues with using AI, and how do you modify it's already illegal to discriminate, but how do you make it possible to test for that?
Yes.
What are the requirements? I think we'll see insurance. I think healthcare, right? There already is, algorithms as a medical device are regulated by the FDA, but we may see other things that will come down, right, that we'll need to regulate in specific instances. You'll need more domain-specific knowledge. I don't think we'll see as many broad frameworks looking at, and again, you shouldn't be regulating a technology. You regulate the use cases of that technology.
A piece of this legislation has just recently gone into effect, as I understand it. Starting July 1st, the Computer Science Education and Workforce Development Account was established with the plan to support the Department of Education to spend funds to support curriculum development, professional development for teachers, and other computer science education. Sounds great. Can you tell us what's in the account, or if any money's actually going to be put in it?
Yeah, and that actually was modifying an existing account. Okay. So that was created in 2019 out of the CS for CT legislation, with the thought that we would get companies to donate in to help us to expand the computer science education. So we just wanted to expand that beyond K-12 with workforce, and making explicit AI training was included in that. We'll have to look at that as we go forward. There was no appropriation. Typically, companies want to see that you're putting some money in, and then they'll match and put other money in. So it is something we will have to work on. But we did want to put that stake in the ground, that this is important. We do want to partner, right? The state can't do it alone. Public schools can't do it alone. Really, it has to be industry, academia, and government going forward.
It seems like something out of Governor Ned Lamont's playbook to try to get some of the folks from private industry involved in this, and I'm sure that's a part of it. But I'm glad that you brought up that you have to have some kind of buy-in from the state level. So I'm imagining that's something you'll continue to work on to try to get that appropriation.
Oh yeah, we'll keep working on that. And
easier in a new budget than when you're trying to negotiate the end of the biennium, right?
We'll look at that in the next cycle, right? When you're starting over with the budget and continuing to look at what do we need to do for education, K-12, again, making sure we're prepared.
Other thing I heard about that's in there is the computer science requirement. Is that going to be happening anytime soon? Will that be implemented this fall?
So the computer science requirement just modified an existing requirement.
Sure.
So it just added AI within. So we require that every school teaches a computer science class, not that every student takes it. So there are areas we can look at expanding, like look at some states have made computer science a part of a graduation requirement. Some states have allowed for it to replace a math or another course to count towards a graduation requirement. So that's something that I think the education committee will look at, and I'd love to work with them when they do that. So.
Let's go back to the ladder. I got a Warner ladder. You can't see it. It's off screen. It's right across from me. And I got James talking about the bottom of the Senator Maroney talking about the bottom of the ladder here. We had Irene Parisi. I don't know if you had occasion to listen to her right before she came on. You were in the green room, I believe, but I'm thinking about it from a ladder perspective. You're at the top of it because you're at the state level, and then Irene is at a state agency, and then we have the municipal school districts. So would it interact in this way if I can? I just want people to understand it. Would you tell folks that everybody has to have a computer science requirement, or excuse me, a computer science class in their school, and then you would expect Irene and the Department of Education to oversee that, but districts can then sort of structure any kind of programs, the way that they want, or they could try to work with their Board of Education to sort of implement these things at the local level.
Right. And
is that a way to look at it?
Yeah. And this just said a computer science class, and AI counts. All we did was modify computer science to say an AI course would count as that. And so it's no set curriculum. It would be up to the local
But not just
schools.
Computer science. Let's look at artificial intelligence. I guess a better way to ask this would be, do school boards sort of have freedom to sort of, I guess, where would the line be, I guess, for schools and these school boards to sort of make regulations with AI?
Yeah, no, they have the freedom. And I think that, my view is the state, our primary role is aggregating resources to make it easier for them. So working within the RESCs. I know Ed Advance, Matt Mervis has been doing a lot of great work on AI and assisting the districts. So we have created some pilot programs in the past. We've given some money to Ed Advance to work on some of these, whether it's model curriculum, professional development. But we're seeing lots of great things bubbling up from the school districts. So it's as a state, we can assist by aggregating these resources and making them available to the local districts.
Quickly talk about the AI Academy. You brought it up earlier.
Yeah, the AI Academy. It's created by Charter Oak. David Ferreira is the provost there. He's done a tremendous job. So first we partnered actually with Google. We used their Internet Essentials, so AI Essentials course. So anyone who takes that gets a Google certificate. But then we layered on some additional lessons within that. So it's a free program. Anyone can take it. Go to charteroak.edu.
You don't have to be in K through 12 or even at a college program here in Connecticut. Anybody can take it. I can take it.
Yep, you can take it. I started it. I need to finish it.
So I'm going to have Colleen, my wife, take it because she's talking about ChatGPT too much. And I use Google Gemini a lot, so I can't complain too much. Yeah. Has there been pushback on AI being used in the classrooms? We talked to Irene that it obviously comes up and people want to use it. People have been sort of confronted with it in a bad way. Not that it's the district's fault or anything like that, but chatbots you were talking about earlier. So how are you going about balancing excitement with innovation and being sort of cautious?
It is a difficult balance, right? You don't want to slow down innovation. It's here, right? You're not going to put the toothpaste back in the tube. It's out. So how do we make sure it's safe and we're using it in a responsible way? And that's one of the things I think, the Business Higher Ed Forum, they identified the 7 essential skills. One of those is ethical and responsible use. And so that's one of the things we do need to teach. Another thing is lifelong learning. We know things are changing, so we need to make sure that the students have the ability to stay updated because what we know now will be different. The way you use a model now will be different in a probably 3 months, 4 months. And so how do you stay current? And then, believe it or not, one of the good things I would say about AI is it's putting emphasis back on those things that only humans can do. And one of the most important skills we're seeing now is communication and collaboration, right? To be able to communicate ideas with with each other. Hopefully we're going to be able to get AI to do a lot of the drudge work at some time, but we're still going to need to be able to communicate the findings, to work together to solve problems and problem solving, putting an emphasis back on critical problem solving skills.
From Connecticut Public, this is The Wheelhouse. I'm Frankie Graziano. You've been listening to James Maroney, State Senator out of Milford. State Senator Maroney, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me.
So great to have you. I'm going to have you sit here for a second as we tease the next segment. We talked with Irene Parisi earlier about public schools and the use of AI in Connecticut. After the break, let's go to college. We're going to talk to administrators from local universities talking about AI on campus. What are your AI questions? How do you use it? Hit us up. Comment on our YouTube live stream or give us a call, 888-720-9677, 888-720-9677. There's more Wheelhouse next on Connecticut Public. This is The Wheelhouse from Connecticut Public. I'm Frankie Graziano. We've been talking about artificial intelligence and its role in the classroom on this week's Wheelhouse. Government regulation of AI in Connecticut will extend beyond K through 12 public school districts here on to college campuses. Here to talk about what they're seeing in their classrooms and how they'd like state government to interact with their curriculum, if at all, are David Bergman, a special advisor to the provost at the University of Connecticut. David, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks. How are you?
I'm doing well. Good to have you on this morning. I appreciated it. I need to get more caffeinated up here. I have just a little bit of Diet Coke in my Connecticut Public mug. I think you guys have a little more than I did coffee today. But Adam Nemiroff, Assistant Provost for Innovations in Learning, Teaching and Technology at Quinnipiac University. Adam, thank you so much for coming up here.
Thank you for having me on.
I'm grateful to have you guys. If you got a question for our guests, you want to talk about AI, it's the last chance to do it as the show does end soon. So be brief when you call, please. 888-720-9677, 888-720-9677. Adam, Quinnipiac, one of the first institutions to create a degree program solely on AI, as I understand it, beginning in the fall of 2024, so it's 2 years ago. Students could minor in artificial intelligence. And last year, the school introduced an AI minor and master's degree in the School of Business. Why did Quinnipiac feel it was important to create these programs?
Yeah, so it all started with a minor. I think that was a really great way of getting people connected across campus and seeing what some of the other schools were doing. And there's courses across all of our schools that are included as a part of that. As a part of that, we created an AI for Everyone course, which was one of the key. I kind of love the branding of that. And it really helped to create ways to bring it into other courses. And from that interest in that course in the minor, we saw a lot of interest in business and in our School of Computing and Engineering for our BA and MS in applied AI and business analytics and our AI and computing program. The master's program launched first last fall, and the two bachelor's degree programs are things students know about, and some are transferring in as of this fall. The master's program, like any of our programs, we're talking to industry all the time. We're talking to our students, prospective and current, parents, prospective parents, and they're looking for this. And I think hearing that those programs were able to move really quickly with their administration within the schools, and it's worked out quite well. One of the interesting things with the master's program in applied AI and business analytics is there were students who opted, current students, to switch into the new program because the interest was so strong driving it.
David, when students in my journalism class at the University of Connecticut, I teach an intro lab there, when they pitch me stories, students like Katie Service, who is fantastic and is producing this program today, when they pitch me stories, they like to pitch stories about housing at the University of Connecticut or artificial intelligence. Why are students so fascinated by artificial intelligence, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think it flips the entire conversation about education on its head, right? I mean, how much do you use it for generating ideas? How much do you use it for generating outputs? And how do you use it to kind of make an argument? And so we try to embed AI in all of our classes in the best ways that we can and make sure that students are not only prepared to use it, but also to defend the answers that come out of the AI. Because, you know, when I work with companies in the area, one of the main things I have to do is use AI to develop a tool, a technique, or whatever, but then explain to them why that is the right thing. And I think that's the key thing that we try to instill in students. Use the AI, but also be able to defend what comes out of it.
Adam, going back to the response that you are getting when you implement these programs, what's the response being like from students and then I guess from faculty as well?
Yeah, like anything, you see a mix of both. And I think the cultural moment right now is getting increasingly like that. For us, it's been important to create spaces for everyone. There needs to be those conversations about how to use it well. That's at the core of what's guiding the program development. There needs to be spaces, though, also to talk about ethical, social, responsible use, policy implications related to that. And so one of the things we're actually kicking off this year is this program called Ethos, which is a combined speaker series and space for people to come together to talk about some of the more disruptive aspects of these technologies, whether it's jobs or climate or other policy implications with jobs. And I think we're seeing there's interest in all of those. And so part of the tricky thing as a leader in an institution is you have to be able to create those kind of spaces. It's not all about the positive alone. The positive is building off for Senator Maroney's comments, there's no toothpaste back in the tube for sure. I heard that in the green room, but it's really important too to create spaces for all of those voices.
So you're coming up with these classes and these minors. It's fall 2024, so that's only 4 semesters really worth of schooling here. So can you tell if enrollment is going up? Can you tell if interest is going up?
Oh yeah, the enrollment, I haven't checked recently. I think it was at about 100 students in the spring when it launched. And there's a lot of interest in the courses within it. There are core courses that are, the AI for Everyone experience. There's another course tied into computing as well. And the other required course is an ethics course. And I think having that built in, as well as a series of electives that they can do around that based on their interest, whether it's arts or media, some of these other topic areas, that's a lot of what we're seeing students interested in.
And I can understand now that you could receive a bachelor's degree in artificial intelligence, and it sounds like now there's so much interest at Quinnipiac. Do you have enough space for everybody? Are you having to sort of expand how it's being offered across schools? How's it going over there?
We have 2 beautiful new buildings.
Yeah.
I would start there. The School of Business and the site are both incredible spaces. A lot of these, we're seeing one of the things with the computing program version of this in the computing and engineering school is it doesn't do away with computer science. We see interest in this from students, but it's also about creating additional spaces from the strengths and areas of expertise we have based on demand that we're seeing. So it's not that everybody's going to major in AI. I think you'll see more and more students having options, specialized pathways with that. And then what I spend a lot of my time doing is working with our other schools and programs, whether it's our School of Medicine, Health Sciences. What does it look like to be a healthcare practitioner now with these tools that are at the bedside as well? And we're seeing a lot of uptake there as well. And that might be more difficult to tease out, but it's definitely part of how we talk about it and how we strategically are thinking about those programs and curriculum.
David, UConn students received an email from the provost's office at the beginning of June informing them of the new AI for Impact initiative. That's AI for IMPA, capital CT, because CT is in there. The creation of an AI council, a proposal to launch an AI minor this fall, and university-wide undergraduate AI major targeted for fall of 2027. Why has the university decided to foster programs that expand on AI?
Well, we see it from the student demand and industry. People need this. My own personal perspective is that in the next 5 or so years, there will be a need for people that have just the traditional skills in any particular domain, but then also AI plus that domain. And so what we're trying to do is equip students with that capability. But I think if we look 5 or 10 years down the road, actually all disciplines will have it integrated within them. And so I don't think you're going to get a marketing degree or a journalism degree that requires a plus AI designation. It's just going to be a journalism degree. So what we're going to probably try to do in the next year is draft out a fully customizable AI major through our individualized major program so that students will have some scaffolding of what the major looks like. But they can then look at the new courses that are being offered across all campus asked to swap them in place of the other requirements so that students can craft their own path. We actually have a student right now that's doing an individualized major in AI. I think it's one student right now on campus who looked at our curriculum and really wanted to pull together a bunch of classes. And I think that's great because what we want to do is we want to offer students an agile framework.
That person's the pilot.
That person's the pilot. And I think we're going to learn. Actually, I'm really excited to see which units have students that want to get a specialized kind of degree in AI. And I think it's going to be fun to see how they kind of bridge together the AI story. And I think it's going to change all the time. So all that we're doing through this impact, AI for Impact, is trying to make sure that we're very agile with the programs that we deliver. Because
you talk more about AI for Impact if you can.
Yes, I can. So there's an AI council which consists of about 30 people across campus. That's instructors, both research professors and
Who's in charge of it?
So I'm running the AI Council through an AI Executive Committee. Yeah. So it's me and 4 others, also really impactful people in the UConn community in AI, and then about 25 others. And these are people from IT, librarians, CEDL, even our union representatives. Then you have faculty, you have staff, you have everybody across the board. And we're breaking them up into 4 different domains: responsible AI, academic programs, research and scholarship and innovation, and then infrastructure. And those 4 domains will do work and kind of, be a consultative body across campus for what's happening at UConn, what are our gaps, what do we need to expand upon, and make sure that we're delivering to students in the workforce.
What we're basically articulating here, folks, is that college kids care a lot about AI, so much so that I guess during the 2026 college graduation season, hearing anecdotal evidence of commencement speakers being booed for touting AI's benefits and enormous role it plays in society. So I just want to get your take on this. What has the response in regard to learning about and using AI been like from students, I guess?
So if I could, when I was announced as the special advisor to AI, I got some cautionary emails from students. I don't know if you've received any of these. And just making sure that we are aware of the voice that is speaking about the risks to society and the environmental impact and all that stuff. And so I think we're definitely mindful of that, but we can't ignore the fact that AI is transforming the world. And so we have to move forward, but we need to move forward in a way that is responsible and kind of, thinks about both sides of the coin.
Yeah, I think part of it is, again, creating some of those community spaces to authentically talk about this. And I like the metaphor of holding light and shadows with AI as a topic area, this idea that there are good areas casted with the light and there are shadows that we need to be thinking about as well. We need those spaces and we need to not dismiss them.
I've only got about 45 seconds for you to do this, but there's an alliance that could be a safe space as well.
Yeah.
There's an AI alliance that you all are both part of.
Yes, and thank you to Senator Maroney for his support around that. The Connecticut AI Alliance is a group of all of the public and independent colleges in Connecticut. It's led up by Jen Widness and Vahid from University of New Hampshire, New Haven. And it's a great group of people trying to get resources, helping people to share resources and lessons with each other. And it's been a wonderful space so far.
You've been listening to David Bergman and Adam Nemiroff, custodians, I would say, of AI and ethics, if you will, at their respective universities. David, Adam, great to have you on the show.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you so much, and look forward to those programs, students, if you're at the University of Connecticut and Quinnipiac University as well. Today's show produced by Katie Service, a fellow UConn Husky like myself. Great job, Katie, and Chloe Wynn. It was edited by Robin Doyen-Aiken. Our technical producer is Dylan Reyes. And, of course, we had Gene Amatruda doing it as well today. Want to thank Andy Patterson and the rest of our Connecticut public team here. A special thanks to Tess Terrible, our talk show, visuals, and operations teams here at Connecticut Public. Download the Wheelhouse anytime on your favorite podcast app. I'm Frankie Graziano. This is the Wheelhouse. Thank you so much for listening.